So this video, gonna be doing the roof, kind of like this. This is 2 by 8 by 8 foot pressure treated mud sill. Putting down some like a layer of foam, and then putting down the mud sill. These get bolted down with the J-bolts, and it makes sense here. This is side profile. So this design was originally for a floor, and eventually, you know, depending on how things go, you know, it'll eventually be a floor. And once it's a floor, this design will make sense, you know, having these J-bolts like this. But for now, it's just kind of, you know, not standard, you know, not bad, but not good, you know. It works. But basically, putting in the mud sills, and then the rafters. Let's see. This is a post. It just needs to be expanded a little. So I know these are 4x4. I may add a couple more 2x4s to it to make it like a 4x6, 4x8, something like that, you know. But for right now, 4x4. Lowe's didn't have I wanted 4x6s, but Lowe's didn't carry 4x6, and these are 10-footers. You know, I would have to go with, I think, an 8-footer, which would be too short, or a 12-footer, which would be a lot of scrap, wasteful. So I just went with 4x4s, and then I'll add some 2x4s to it later on. Putting in these posts, putting in a double beam. So this is a green roof. It's not a green roof right now, but it will eventually be a green roof, you know. I do plan on adding the main floor of the house, you know, depending on how things go. And when I do, when I add that main part of the house, it'll be reusing this roof, taking this roof apart and reusing it. And at that point, it'll be a green roof, you know. I don't want to be throwing a bunch of dirt on here, just because I'll have to be taking it off. So I got a double beam, you know, so a green roof is basically a floor, you know. So treating it like a floor where you got a beam. And then there's also, somewhere buried in there, this is a ridge board. So it's kind of like a proper roof. And these are 2x12s. 2x12s, ridge boards 2x12. This is a double 2x12 beam. Kind of hard to tell, but there's a layer of 3/4 plywood, and there's some strappings, and there's some metal roof on top of the strappings. So I'm probably not gonna get all that far this video, but so this video will be adding the posts, the beams, the mud sill, some of these rafters, cutting these rafters. So I went with 2x6 or 2x12 by 16. This is a 16-footer, and there's all this scrap. You know, you don't want to overhang that's more than 18 inches. I think it'll catch too much wind uplift, you know, or, you know, be too cantilevered, you know, or something, you know. But this is a 2x12. Doing a 2x12, you know, it's way too short, you know. It's just kind of like, it would be basically, you know, this is like 3-inch overhang, you know, from the wall. And it wouldn't be a vertical cut, you know, it'd be just at this, you know, 212. So I've changed it a little. This right here is just under a 212 pitch. But went ahead, so went with these 2x6 or 2x12 by 16s. And then with all this scrap over here, I'm going to cut these 2 blocks, which would be that block and this block. What's this? Oh, I get a better view of it right here. The underlayment, the end block, and the one things, and the other things. Various things. This is an overlap, I think, in the metal roof. I was seeing how the overlap would work, you know, like how far, you know, here's my first strapping, and if I do metal, you know, I want that metal screwed down onto a strapping. So that would be kind of the placement for that strapping. Kind of get my strapping layout. I think that's what I was doing that for. You can kind of see this. So I got like everything's to scale. Using, I just made this little ruler, 12 identical boxes. Being really careful. This is Inkscape. So it's vector drawing. You can just zoom in and zoom in and zoom in. And it never gets out of focus. So it's just getting in real tight. Being real careful on my tape measure and then doing everything to that scale. So I just go over, 16 foot. Put it on this house, got, this was gonna be it. My pitch was gonna be a little off. This pitch, what I have labeled as my pitch, was kind of the pitch that was used on a diagram for doing a green roof. It was just under a 212 pitch that they used on their roof diagram. So I was just gonna go with that, kind of. I like their design. But I'm thinking maybe they were just a little off in their design. Maybe this is probably like a 10-degree angle. So a 212 pitch is like a 10.5-degree angle. So I was originally going off of that pitch, but I just decided to go standard 212. You never know what this metal roof can do. What the minimum pitch requirement is for a metal roof, but 212 should be safe. So the problem with a shallow pitch is where you have your seam. The wind can blow water up through there, or if this were up north, water could freeze thaw, and kind of freeze thaw its way up, and then get in, Neither of those would really be a problem, I don't think, for my location. It doesn't freeze enough, for that to be an issue, the freeze thawing. And I really don't see water getting blown that far in. And then it can just creep up like capillary attraction maybe or something. Where it just moves on its own, Just kind of the molecular forces making it want to crawl uphill. You don't think it would, but it does. Just not very far. But anyways, I think that should be fine. Yeah, so, you go over, do a little box. Now this little line right here is level and this one's plumb, So I can put this box on here, make the box go over and up, like a 12 foot over, 2 foot up, that's the 212 pitch right there, draw a diagonal line on this, from that corner to that corner, and now you got that 212 pitch. So put that 212 pitch, that gives me my post height, which is 8 foot 6 1/4. And granted, the floor is uneven. It's not going to be 8 foot 6 1/4 at each post, but that'll be kind of just the standard post height right there. And then I'll do variations off of that, 8 foot 6 1/4. adding to it, subtracting from it. You know, draw a little plumb line right here and a plumb line right there. Draw a bird's mouth right there. Oh, whoops. Bird's mouth right there. Draw all these different things onto this board. And then just set that board to a ruler. So I can see that, you know, my end cut for this is at 13'3", and then it's a 212 pitch over, but so basically, you know, kind of how I came up with this layout was just putting it on the, you know, drawing the building, drawing the house, you know, and, you know, doing little rectangles here and there and everywheres to kind of get my plumb lines and my level lines. And that's these lines right here, you know, and then set this to the ruler. So that's how I came up with this layout. So to be cutting these rafters, prefabbing these rafters. Oh, and this is the bulk of them, but then the end rafters. So this is the rafter layout. First one, 11 3/8 to center, and then every 16 to center after that, and then the last one is 11. The last one is just whatever it is, you know. It'll be what it's gonna be. You never know. So that's it for the plans, you know. But this is how I came up with, you know, what I'm actually doing, you know, where I got these measurements from and all that is drawing it, you know. And if you're not drawing it on the computer, you can snap lines on the ground, you know, if you got your floor, you know. Snap chalk lines and do measurements that way, you know. You can do them actual size with the chalk line, you know, rather than mini to scale, you know. You just do it actual size, you know, and you snap lines. But doing basically the same thing, drawing it like this, but with chalk lines on the ground. Which, you know, this is a lot easier, so doing it this way. Yeah, so that's this video. Looking good, looking good. These are the posts. And I'm laying them down flat like this, so I know how far to cut them. That's shimmed up 3/8 of an inch. That shimmed up nothing. This is shimmed up 1/2 of an inch. And that shimmed up nothing. And then it's level, you know. So my base measurement is 8'6 1/4. And with this, I'm just gonna add 3/8 and add 1/2, leaving these. You know, I suppose you could I could do something and something, but just looking at it, it looks like these are the right ones, you know, and then my one things were just a little hairy. So, you know, two will be cut at 8'6 1/4, and then this one will be 8'6 3/4. And then 5/8, 6, 8'6 1/4 plus 3/8. A quarter is 2/8 and 3/8 is 5/8. It doesn't seem right, but it should be 5/8. So that's kind of the heights for my 4 posts. There, there, there. So that's 8'6" and a quarter. 8'6" and 3/4. 8'6" and 1/4. And 8'6" and 5/8. So then this right here is this, you know. Here it is. Oh. So the speed square, you got your degrees, 10 degrees, and here's your top common rafters. And yeah, this is a pitch, you know, a 212. It's basically 10 degrees, but it's slightly off. And then here you got their hip. You know, this is a gable roof where they're just all going like this. But with a hip roof, you know, let's say this is 24 feet. You know, so it's 12 foot to the center. You go over 12 foot, you know, and then you'd have these hip masters, which would be a diagonal, you know, that goes from there to the ridge part. And another one right here, going up. And this angle is different from your common rafters. The hip master's slightly different. And then your common rafters would be butting into that hip master, going across and then going this way. So if you're doing a 212, you're cutting your hip master at a 212, you use this two. But if you're cutting your common rafter at a 212, you're using this two. You know, so that's how this one's labeled. That's the hip. You know, and then valley, you have like an overbuild where it's a real tricky thing. You know, where you're kind of doing an overbuild. But so it'd be the same thing. Yeah, I've never done a valley, but same thing. So it's kind of really can't so I'm going to use this as a template. Here we go. I'm just going to trace this onto all of them. But putting this at like, you know, 2 inches in. And then here we go. Lining that up on the 2. So you kind of see how far out that hip cut is from the 2. And you see it's like almost 11. Almost 9. Oh, it's 9.5 degrees, not 10.5. 9.5 degrees. Then you can draw that angle, extend it down. One thing I didn't show was this. I gotta cut this out. So right here is going to be the ridge board. This is gonna butt into the ridge board, running this way. And this is 11.25. So now I got 11.25. so. And then there's going to be a double beam down here. So going at this angle is longer than 11 1/4. You know, it's like 11 3/8. So this would stick up proud, stick up higher than the ridge board, you know. So basically I'm doing a little bird's mouth down here. This will be sitting on a double 2x12 beam down here. So 1.5 inches of that is being, you know, the ridge board. So I got another 1.5 inches of beam that I need to compensate for. So that's this right here. 3/4 on this side, and then 3/4 on the rafter on the other side. And that's just, you know, 90° off of my ridge board. So this would be kind of like a little baby bird's mouth, wall bird's mouth. Once it's installed, this line right here will be level. This is where the fascia would go. I'm not going to do any fascia, I don't think. What I might do is some metal. Being like a bunker, I want it to be as fire resistant as possible. You wouldn't think, you know, there's all this greenery. You wouldn't think that there would be fires over here, but there was fires a few years ago somewheres. You know, not around here. I want to say it was eastern Tennessee or maybe North Carolina or something like that. Can't remember, but it was surprising that there was forest fires, you know. Cool thing about being in logger land is that the loggers, you know, it's all well managed timberland, you know. They cut the things down before it just becomes a bunch of dead wood, you know, a bunch of dead trees drying out, you know. They harvest it well before then. So it's a bunch of young, fresh trees, you know. Small, young, fresh ones. But I want to keep it, you know, so normal situation, you wouldn't really have fires, but this is end times weather. So there's a good chance there's going to be fires. So I'll put some metal there. It'll be a metal roof. Metal fascia. And then cinder blocks. You know, so very fire resistant. So I'm not going to do fascia. But I may do metal. You know, you don't want your rafter tails to get rotted away, and you know, fascia, having a board here or some metal here, that'll take the water, you know, and the board will, that fascia board will rot, rather than the rafter tail. When this rots, you know, it's kind of a not good, you know. You can always sister something up, but it's not as clean at that point. Whereas a fascia board, you just pop it off, put a new one on. Easy peasy. So I'm going to cut these, do that notch, and then cut the rest of these. This is only 8 of them, 7 more, plus this template. But eventually it's going to be 45 or so. I can't remember. If I got 45, I got to cut. So I'm just going to be stacking them back here. Cut it, you know, scribe it out. Cut it with, I'm hoping I can use this. This was the lowest amperage at Lowe's, 13 amp. But this still trips the generator. You know, even though that generator is rated for 14 amp. Which is messed up, considering that it was advertised for 20 amp outlets. You know, it's kind of, you can't even use 13 amps on it, you know. But I can get in a couple cuts with this. It's hard to say how much, you know. I'm going to see how far I can get. You know, I did these cuts with it, okay, you know. So it's kind of like draw everything out, turn the generator on, do those cuts, you know, turn the generator off, stack it, you know, and then draw the next cuts, turn the generator on. So there's a lot of cool downs, you know, in between each cut. there'll be 5-10 minutes to cool down while I'm drawing and moving stuff and just looking at the trees. Squirrels are moving back in, kind of nice. Yeah, it's probably because there's some nice acorns right up there. Acorns and then some hickory nuts right there. Doesn't get much better. So, sweet gum seed pods right there. Just all kinds of food for them. Alright, so I'm going to get going on this. Some good winds. This guy must have blown in from the winds. Very nice. Oops. Something and something. So this is 32 of the rafters cut up. Kind of the main stack. They'll get me to right about here. Going this way. I got some more up there that are buried under the 2x12s, the 12-foot 2x12s. That'll be for the beam. So it's kind of, that's next project. I got those. Still got 2 right there. Kind of go over to there. And those 2 to do the same thing on the other. Okay, this is what I'm using. So Lowe's has this stuff a little bit thicker, so it'd be better, more air pockets, but oh well. But the stuff at Lowe's is made for a 2x4 or a 2x6, not a 2x8. They don't have anything for a 2x8, so I'm going with this. Just about as good, like thickness wise, but it'll be full coverage, rather than having 2.5 inches exposed on the concrete. This way I can get full coverage. So that's why I'm using this, and this is probably cheaper. I don't know. You would think something that's for construction would be marked up, price wise, and something at Walmart is going to be cheaper. So I probably saved money on this, and I get, this is 12 inches. So I get my 8 inches plus 4 inches. So hit it up. Score, 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 score. And these are perforated every 12 inches. So count it out 17 full squares, unrolled 17 squares. That's 17 feet. And this is what's left over. Still got those for the back end, when I do the second order. That's it for that. And put those on.
To hit troops from another NATO country, and Trump's desire to disentangle the U.S. from Mideast conflicts, this operation was a go, and at least tacitly accepted, although Trump denies.
Probably his best option right there.
Southern Turkey, as you mentioned, has hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of Syrian refugees.
Or her best option.
Yes, mixed feelings. I did meet some of them today. One in particular, close to the border, a large extended family, swarm of children, parents, assorted aunts, and other relatives. They all crowded around, as the father explained. They come from just across the border in Syria. Other families
Around here. This is a construction zone.
of displaced people, where they wind up.
So I got this. Found 2 of these in my bucket. 7/8 paddle bit. That's what I've been using for. Throwing out these. Put on this stuff. It's the 16 foot. These are the 2. So I'm going to set this up and then mark it. Give it that mark. And then using the speed square. One from the outside wall to the center of the bolt. And then I compensated a 1/2 inch so that it sits a 1/2 inch in. That's that mark. I'm gonna drill. This is a impact driver. Not really good for drilling, but I got my battery for the other one up at the shack, and I keep forgetting to bring it down. This works good enough. Beautiful. So that's pretty much it for the beam. Got that little tail end right there. I'll cut that out of that. These last three, and then this is scrap. These last three will be the ridge. So this is it for this video. These last three will be the ridge. That'll be next video. Doing my layout on the ridge. Notching the first 4 of these for the front edge. First 4 get notches for some 2x4s. Every 2 foot it'll be a 3'8" 2x4. Those ones right there that I cut. What do you call it? Cut those. I got a lot of tripping hazards. Set up the saw. Gave it 4 screws at 3'8". You know, marked one at 3'8" and lined up the blade. And then screwed down the saw. This can cut 2 at once. So I needed 28 of these. So when you're doing 28 of something, a lot of something, you might as well, you know, set up kind of like a, using the wall as a backstop, so I can just cut, you know, 2 at once, you know, measure once, cut 28 times. That's the way I like to do it. So those will be going every 2 foot. Right now the mud sails are just kind of finger tightened. They're not bolted down tight, you know, giving that concrete more time to cure. It's not critical that it be bolted down just yet, you know. Put in, this is the roof strappings right here. They're braced every so often so that these are nice and firm, you know, firm enough for now. Once it gets the rafters, that'll really tie it together, and then there'll be a kind of like almost like a drop ceiling, almost, you know, 12-foot 2x4, making a flat ceiling. Some metals. Got some more metals that I'll be putting on that. The ridge. So the ridge is going to sit on top of this. So it'll basically be 2 foot thick. You know, here's 1 foot, and then the ridge will be on top. And on that ridge is where these rafters are going to be. Making this like a normal roof would just be a ridge, you know. A normal like rafter roof. You can also do trusses, and then there is no ridge board, you know. But if you're doing a ridge board, is rafter at that point, you know. Normally it just free floats, you know. It's kind of the weight is on the wall and on the ridge board itself, kind of. But I'm putting it, since this is a green roof, putting it on that beam. Gave it a lot of screws. Basically, you want the different things to be one piece of wood, and you accomplish that with a lot of screws. The spots that are antennae, it's just screwed on the back. Once this is like perma, you know, I'll glue it, you know, put glue in between these, and then screw them back together. But until that point, you know, I may be taking this roof down, so I don't want any glue, you know. Now I can just unscrew it. Normally it would be every 2 inches, and being a 12-inch material, it should have 6 nails. I think every foot you have, you know, a nail for every 2 inches. That's kind of your header nailing. I think it's every foot. It's been, that was like early 2000s I was framing, so I can't really remember my header nailing, but these are screws. They got more holding power, so I didn't bother with 6 per, you know. And this is a bunker, you know, it doesn't exist, you know, this is just kind of off-grid, you know, out and backwoods. It's good enough. Everything's screwed, you know, so I can unscrew it. Yeah, so that's it for this video. Next video will be laying out my ridge board, you know, where I put my rafters, like 11 3/8 in, and then every 16 inches. After that, there'll be a little metal bracket for a rafter. Once I get the first one laid out, you know, I'll set it up there, you know, put in a couple rafters to hold it in, and then do the next one, and then the next one. And once I get all these rafters down, those rafters will go to about that beam right, that post right there. It's not going to go all the way. You know, I got the rest of them over there, but there's really no room for them all right now. So once I get those out, I'll put in the last little bit of the beam. Yeah, so next video will be, you know, doing the ridge, putting in the rafters, and probably the sheathing and the metal and all that to get it to right about that beam, that post. That's all the material I got to get that far, you know, and then at that point I'll put in an order for the next load, and that'll be a different video. Yeah, so that's it for this one.